There is a lot to talk about in the legal world facing President Trump. The cases moving all over the country. The one right now, you might have seen it on your television, is out of Georgia, and this comes to whether or not the DA there, Fani Willis, should be disqualified from further action in this case. That would include her entire DA team. And the question we want to answer for you is, what would happen if that does occur? There's 2 days of testimony. There's testimony ongoing now between now we found out this boyfriend who received the nearly $700,000 to kind of lead this. He's testifying. He's mentioned even cash payments being made. That's always kind of sets some alarms off. And then they have more hearings on Friday.
The civil fraud trial that has already been concluded, the verdict on damages, which is decided by the judge, is due Friday. And there could be an award of damages up to $350 million. And the possibility that President Trump's company will be barred from doing business in New York, which would then also possibly mandate the appointment of what's called a receiver for the business. Andy, you've been a receiver.
I have.
A court-appointed receiver. That would hamper Donald Trump's ability to run his business significantly.
That's right. A receiver is an officer of the court appointed in a state court proceeding analogous to a trustee in a bankruptcy proceeding, but this is in the state court, and the receiver would really be the person who operates the business and makes the decisions with respect to who is paid, who is not paid, and the daily operations of the business.
At the same time, it is possible that we receive the opinion in the 14th Amendment case. That'll be a week and a day that's been argued, so it could well come out. In Bush versus Gore, it took about 4 days. So that opinion could be due any day. And then the issue of absolute immunity that was filed by President Trump's lawyers, the special counsel was given until next week to respond. He responded yesterday, which means we could get a decision on whether they're going to hear that case as early as Friday. And I think there's some obstacles, honestly, in that case, and that the shooting for absolute immunity was a big gamble, I think, legally. And the other aspect of it is, I think there was an easier appeal approach, which would have delayed the proceedings and wouldn't have been final conclusion, but it would have been this idea that the court ruled that the issue of presidential immunity expired at 12:01 on January 20th, the moment that the president becomes a former president. And Andy and I both said at this desk in this studio that is fundamentally incorrect, and that could have been a basis. That was not the basis they decided to take it up on, but that, I think, would have been a basis where you could have won unanimously.
I think the best way for our audience to kind of take this down is what's best case for President Trump, worst case for President Trump, and kind of is there a middle ground, like where you didn't get all you wanted, but it's a quasi-win?
Well, here's what and if President Trump has joined in this motion, the motion that was made in this case by Mike Roman, one of the defendants, is both a motion to disqualify Fani Willis and Mr. Wade. And then Andy will get into that actually means the disqualification of the entire office, and a motion to dismiss. So they have made a motion to dismiss with their request for the prosecutor to be taken off the case.
This is a motion that has two prongs to it that has been made by Roman and signed on to by President Trump, and that is to disqualify the district attorney's office in Fulton County, Fani Willis and all her assistants out of it, and a motion to dismiss the indictment in the case. And Judge McAfee has got to decide both of those issues. He can decide, for instance, to disqualify the district attorney's office in Fulton County, which is Fani Willis and all her assistants, in which case a new prosecutor from Georgia would be appointed with the complete power to make a decision as to what's going to happen in the case. He could pursue, or she could pursue the case criminally. He or she could dismiss the case, move to what we call in Georgia null pros the case, which is a fancy Latin term that means to dismiss the case, or pursue some defendants, dismiss other defendants, allow pleas that have been tendered to be withdrawn with their consent. In other words, wouldn't oppose that if the judge decided to do that. Judge McAfee would also have the right under Georgia law, pursuant to a case that was decided in 1916, to dismiss the indictment in the case. There is authority that he could dismiss the indictment as well.
The second thing that can happen is he disqualifies the office. Right. The governor then appoints another district attorney. That district attorney evaluates the case and then will make a decision whether to proceed or not. My inclination would be not, because this RICO, and Andy's shaking his head, the RICO thing is so untested.
Right.
And the third thing is and this would be the worst case scenario for the defendants, is he says they haven't made a sufficient case to show that the case is tainted. And she allows Fani Willis to stay on the case. I kind of think that's hard pressed. The crime issue here, or the impropriety issue, is the money utilization. The money that was given to this law firm of Wade's was then used to take Fani on these trips and pay for expenses and whatnot. And that's what's going on in court.
The important thing here is, and Professor Dershowitz also mentioned this, is the appearance of impropriety. It's not some things may not be criminal, but the office of the district attorney is there to do justice,
right?
Not to get a guilty verdict, but to do the right thing. And if there is an appearance of impropriety, and it seems like the evidence is adding up to that, it's up to Judge McAfee to decide. There's no jury in this hearing.
She actually keeps her position as
she'd
DA.
still be the Fulton County DA. She just will not be the DA on this case.
And then
and her office is disqualified as well. It's not just her; it's her entire office is disqualified.
And the new DA gets appointed by
Governor Kemp, and would be able to evaluate the case from the beginning, which I think they would. And I think in a matter of months, I think the case would be dismissed.
They could actually dismiss the entire
I believe
case.
that's what the outcome would be. You don't know, but I think that's what it would be.
This doesn't get rid of her as a DA.
No, I think that's important to understand.
This only takes her off the Trump case. And a new DA will be appointed. They could decide. Listen, they could decide to continue to bring the case. You think it's less
likely
because they would if they were brought in.
The RICO theory is so bizarre.
Would they have to start from zero? Or would they because this is now tainted?
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't think they'd have to start from zero, but I think there could be all kind of.
Like, do they get all their files and research? Or they have to go through and back
witness,
and do all that?
I don't know. I mean, are the witness interviews that Wade did valid? I mean, it raises a whole host of issues.
Also, it is the defendants. I mean, putting them.
First of all, this is going to cost the county millions.
I have worked for DAs who have become pro tem DAs. That's what this is. You come in and you take the case as you find it, but then you can make the prosecutorial decisions from that point going forward. And you can decide to null, pros, or dismiss the case.
We could be getting news very soon, even as early as tomorrow, Dad, on our case, the 14th Amendment case at the U.S. Supreme Court.
That case has been argued a week ago. The briefs have been submitted now for a week and a half. So all the briefing and arguments are done. Traditionally, in cases that are expedited, the decisions come back in a quick fashion. In Bush versus Gore, it was 4 days. We're now at a week and a day. I think realistically here, I think starting tomorrow, you start looking for a possibility of an opinion. I would think it's live tomorrow, possibilities. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but I think you'll get the decision on the 14th Amendment. I'm still very optimistic on that. I think we carried the day. We'll see which direction the court goes in. The immunity case, this absolute immunity that President Trump is claiming now at the Supreme Court, he lost at the D.C. Court of Appeals, is now up at the Supreme Court. Both briefs have been filed. I know that they're trying maybe to get another brief in. I'm not sure that'll happen. You could get an order on that motion to stay, which is what Trump's lawyers have filed, as early as tomorrow as well.